Hey, you're listening to the wrong podcast. Topics today include beautify, breakup, and backup.
Wrong!
It's the wrong podcast, but we'll make it right. Spinning the world in a whole new light. Winning wild and a little askew. And the one who's right, it might be you. It might be you.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm here to talk about politics, culture, religion, sports, and anything else you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. It's your number one! Wookiee love. This is the best breakup story I've ever heard, and I cannot believe that this woman shared it. This woman from Australia, she broke up with her boyfriend. He did not like it. He did not take lightly to her breaking up with him. So, he produced flyers and put them all over the city. And the flyers advertised a Chewbacca impression contest. And the flyer included her home phone number and said to call it any hour and to leave a message with the Chewbacca impression or to do the Chewbacca impression for whoever answered the phone, and that there would be like $1,000 prize for the winner. And of course, the phone number was the woman who broke up with him. And she would get calls at all hours of the day and night from people doing this sort of thing.
Chewbacca.
I mean, come on. That's very good.
And what I can't believe about this story is that she went to the local news about it. She said, "Look what he did." And she confessed that this was a pretty good prank. So good for her, good on her, as they would say down under. I wouldn't probably give him the satisfaction of letting everybody know what a great prank this is. But he followed it up and did something rather destructive. He parked his car in her driveway and removed all the wheels so that she couldn't get out of her own driveway. It would block her in, which seems like an expensive and obvious thing to do, to leave your own car in somebody's driveway. And I guess the police eventually came and towed his car away. So this would be his expense. It'd be a temporary setback for her. But in the long run, it seems like a bigger loss for him. All that to say, I don't think she's really missing out on anything by not continuing to date this bloke. Issue number 2! Freedom is chaos. We are walking on just the thinnest line between chaos and freedom here. There are so many things I don't understand about how things work, what we decide is okay, what the social conditions are, what the unwritten rules are. And this would be perfect for what are the rules typically, but this is a much bigger issue than can be tackled in that segment of the show. Let me just give you the layout of what's happening here where I live. Every year we have a 4th of July parade, and let me tell you, it is mediocre at best. It's kind of lame. It's way too long. Everybody and anybody who wants to advertise or show off their community group or their church or their scouting group, I don't know, the Little League team, everybody gets out there. This thing is over an hour and a half long. It's typically really hot. Everybody's just walking, and I don't know why we do this, but it is extremely popular. And you cannot get a seat for this parade. And what's crazy about not getting a seat for this parade is that people go out there 10 days in advance, 10 days before the 4th of July. They're out there putting chalk down on the sidewalk saying this is the Williams family spot or something like that. I don't know if they write their name on it. I haven't really tried chalking out a spot for myself or checking out the chalk, but it's there. And in fact, somebody saw a woman out there 7 days before the 4th of July putting chalk down for her family, and they posted it to Facebook in a city group, and this woman named Duffy, she's the one who saw it. She took the photo of the woman and she wrote this about the woman. In the quiet suburbs, a seasoned matriarch ventures out 7 days before the first marching band is heard to perform a time-honored ritual, chalking out her family's sacred 4th of July territory. With stroller in tow, she lays claim to prime parade real estate, like a pioneer of the great frontier. Others may sleep, but she prepares. Because in this neighborhood, securing curb space a week early isn't just a strategy, it's survival. Well done, Duffy. Well done. It cracked me up. And my friend and I, we were talking about this. He said, wouldn't you just like to go out there and wash the chalk off? And I took it a step further. I said, no, you don't just wash the chalk off. You put a blanket over that chalk, because blanket beats chalk. They can't complain if all they did was put chalk down. If you put a blanket down and there's no chalk there, you wash the chalk off, you put blanket down, you tape the blanket down, you use whatever kind of adhesive you can find to keep that blanket from blowing away. And, you know, if you're going to go for it, then, or if somebody's trying this with the blanket, well, then you just take their blanket away. You put a tarp down and you put a blanket over the tarp. And why settle for that? Why not just put a plaque in the sidewalk to mark your spot on the parade route? This is your family's spot for all time and eternity. Chalk be danged. Chalk stands no chance against a plaque, right? What I don't understand about all of this is, why are we all just going along with it? Why are we like, yeah, that's great. You spent 3 minutes putting sidewalk chalk down on this piece of sidewalk 10 days ago. Yeah, I'm going to honor that. That seems legit. You got your spot. Why aren't people just washing it off and putting it on? I guess they're not doing it because they don't want the confrontation. They don't want the confrontation on the 4th of July where you show up, they show up, and you've got your stuff down. And they said, hey, we put chalk down. And you can say, no, you didn't. There was nothing here. That's the only thing I can think of that keeps people honoring the sidewalk chalk. It's just the fear of confrontation. But let me tell you, in other cultures, this would not fly. This would not fly at all. You put your blanket down or your lawn chair, everybody's like, thank you. I wanted another blanket and lawn chairs. I will gladly take that. The city finally stepped in. This is the first time I've seen an announcement from the city about it. They said, no blankets or lawn chairs until the day before the parade. That's the rule according to the city. And if you put your blanket or lawn chair down before July 3rd, the city will take it away and you can retrieve your belongings from the city. If it was in fact the city that took it away, anybody could take it. If you really want some lawn chairs, I know a street here in my hometown that's just giving them away for free. Come take them.
Be a little less snarky. I know, you're right. That is a problem that I have. I'm sorry.
Hey, it's time. What are the rules?
Oh, what are the rules? What are the rules? Don't touch my fries or my garden tools. Oh, what are the rules? Yeah, I got my quirks. Follow them closely and I promise it works.
I am putting this out there to the manufacturers of soy sauce and Worcestershire sauce. That's right, Worcestershire sauce, Worcestershire sauce, Rochester, you know what that stuff is, and soy sauce. You guys need to get together and design different bottles. Because right now, the bottles in my refrigerator look exactly the same. And anybody who listened to my episode, like 2 episodes ago, where I talked about the gravy and the creamy balsamic, knows how dangerous the soy sauce and the Worcestershire sauce looking the same is for me. You really need to change up these bottles. I don't know who needs to change, but one of you needs to change because it looks like you're using the same exact dang bottles. Change them up. Get a new shape. Coca-Cola did it. Everybody did it. These sauces look too similar to have bottles, for them to be put in the same exact bottle. This is no good. No good at all. Please change. Remember, I want to know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you?
If you'd like to submit a question, topic, or tell me how I was wrong, you can email me at listen@thewrongpodcast or submit a comment at my website, thewrongpodcast.com, and help me spread the wrong message. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. And don't forget, leaving a review helps me out a ton. Go to YouTube. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel. You don't even have to listen on YouTube. Just subscribe there. But leave a comment somewhere, please. Issue number 3. Keep them separated. I am so excited to have Karen Swallow Prior join me for a conversation today. Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
First off, before we get into any of the nitty gritty about the real topic, you're the first Karen I've had on my show, so I need you to tell me what it's like to have your name turned into an international meme representing uppity, entitled women.
Yeah, I've always loved my name, but that part's not really fun. But other people have gone through the same thing. Like John and I don't know who else, but it's fine.
Have you gotten any snide comments from Starbucks baristas or anything like that?
No, actually, the thing that comes up is they don't know how to spell it because I guess there's so many variations now, and I always want to say when they ask how to spell it, I want to say the right way, but I don't. But I don't.
That would be a very Karen thing to say.
It would be. It would.
Well, my daughter, she's 9. She plays a game on Roblox called Avoid the Karen.
Oh
And
my.
that's just not fair to you.
Oh well, hopefully I can, show a different side of the Karens in the world.
You certainly do. So, Karen, I brought you on the show to talk about a subject that has flummoxed me for decades. It over and over again, I have this conversation with people. I have it in my own head. And it comes up because in this last week, we've had news about Michael Tate of the Newsboys and DC Talk. And then Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs. I don't know what his name is, but we all know who the guy is. Massive scandals break out about these guys. People love their artwork. What do we do? Oh, I should preface this by saying why I brought you on. You are an author and you are a literature professor. So you've been thinking about this. What do we do about artists and art when we love the art, but the artist is despicable? What do we do?
It's such a great question, and it's an important to think about. And I will say up front, I don't have any black and white answers or a formula, but I have hopefully some guidance, some things to think about. And the first thing that I think is helpful to think about with this question, because it's it's an age-old question. It's just maybe it's getting more pressing in our times as things seem to get worse. But we should understand that a work of art is an object, a separate object. It is a thing. And it should be judged and evaluated, not entirely, but in good part on its objective qualities as a work of art. We don't need to know about the artist. We don't need to know their biography or their family relations or, their whole body of work. Even though those things might be helpful, we can approach a work of art as a work of art. And I think that's where we start. And then we get all the other questions that I'd love to talk about.
Yeah, and I want to like throw in another example of this because I gave an example where you and I are Christians and Tate and Diddy have done things that we object to, but this is not just something that affects us.
Right.
For example, my brother, he is a college professor at a rather progressive school, and the students at his school cannot suffer the name J.K. Rowling right now. They don't know what to do with her because they grew up on her books and her movies, and they hate them now because of her stance on transgender issues.
Right. I mean, this issue, this question cuts both ways, all the ways, left, right, progressive, conservative. It's an important question.
And the issue, I think part of the issue I have is that I do know the biography of the artist, and it so for example, my brother, he teaches comedy, and he does not bring up Bill Cosby at all. And the reason he doesn't bring up Bill Cosby is because he says it would derail every conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It would derail the conversations they're supposed to be having about his artwork, about his comedy,
Right.
because everybody would just be focused on his misbehavior. How do you do that? Do you have a trick for that?
Well, I don't have any tricks, but one of the starting point, my starting point was a work of art is a work of art, and we can evaluate and judge it based on that. But then the next step, I think, is what is the purpose of that work of art? So when we get into examples that hit close to home for us as Christians, such as Michael Tate, whose the purpose of his art ostensibly was to praise and worship God and to draw people closer to God, and obviously to entertain as well, but to entertain Christians specifically. And so, if the purpose of the art is sullied or weakened because of the things that the artist has done, then I think that can become part of the judgment. So if we do know, and again, we often do know the biographies of the artists, and we can't pretend we don't know, but what we do with that information? I think the closer the purpose and the genre and the nature of the art comes to um, the artist's biography and the way that perhaps that life has contradicted what the art is supposed to be about, then I think that's where we might draw a line. We might say, well, I can't become closer to God, or I don't feel drawn to worship him in listening to this song when I know that the artist has done so many things apart from the Christian life. So that might be a factor. Whereas if someone, a Michael Tate was, doing the artwork of putting up brick walls or cement foundations and doing a good job. I mean, that's not necessarily an art, but it's a craft. And he did a good job of that, then we might have draw a different conclusion about his work.
Yeah, I love what you started off with the right premise that art is an object that's separate and unique. And part of the way I think about this is it's a genetic fallacy. It's a logical fallacy. If you went to a doctor and the doctor said, "I'm sorry, you have cancer," it wouldn't be okay for you to say, "Well, you're a serial adulterer, so I don't need to believe you."
Right.
The doctor's diagnosis about your cancer stands whether or not he is an adulterer. He might be an adulterer, and maybe you don't want him as your doctor, but
Right.
the cancer is the thing. The diagnosis is the thing.
Right. No,
And
exactly.
his adultery isn't it's not relevant to the diagnosis.
Right. And again, as you said, we still might not want that person as our doctor, but we still have to look at his work and say, oh, this was, he was correct. It was good work. Yes.
Yeah. And what an artist is doing is they're telling us something. They're not telling us about cancer. They're telling us about beauty. They're telling us about truth.
Right.
Their point, as a Christian, I believe that when they tell us about beauty, they're actually saying something about God that is true and real.
And then it gets a little bit muddier when we think, well, is this person being truthful? Then if the person is saying God is this, God is that, and and then living a life that is contrary to that, then we may not trust them as a messenger of the truth. And that can, we can't ultimately separate truth, goodness, and beauty. Again, we can judge them separately and make caveats and nuances, but it still can affect our overall judgment if we know that this person is not conveying a truthful thing in a truthful way.
Yeah. The suspicion the suspicion they raise may not be worth the experience of the art they're creating. Right. That's kind of what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. And then then there's another point that I would make is that, so we've talked about the art as a work of art, an object, and then the purpose of the work of art. But then also we can think about the especially we have to in this day and age, about the sort of systems and structures and institutions that artist and that art are part of. And so if we'll just keep using Michael Tate as an example, though there are others that I may want to bring up, but we might, I mean, he has done egregious things, but he also there's a whole system and a whole celebrity culture that supported and covered up and did not hold him accountable. And so for me, I'm actually a little bit more concerned about that supporting or not supporting that system and that culture and those institutions than about this particular artist. So we might not want to put our money and our time and our resources into supporting not only the artist but even the very kind of culture that bred and birthed and supported him.
Yeah, you went even bigger than I was thinking. So what I noticed with Michael Jackson was the 4 days, maybe 3 days after he died, all of a sudden his music was everywhere. And it wasn't you could hear it on the radio, you could hear it at the grocery store. It seemed like everybody said, "Hey, if we listen to this music while he's living, we're actually funneling money into this child abuse thing that he's got going. We're enabling him with this amount of money, and we don't want to do that. So we're withholding." And now that he's dead, okay, great. We don't have to worry about that.
But we do.
We do, because you as you point out, there's a whole system. There's an even a bigger system beyond even the artist, and that's all the lawyers and the enablers that are around him or around other people.
Right.
Well, thanks. That you just made it even harder for me.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. It is
Great.
it is
Appreciate
hard.
it.
But again, and that's where I'll bring in another point, is that 100% purity is not possible when it comes to the way we spend our money and the people we support. I mean, it's not possible. So we do have to think these things through. We also have to let our conscience be a guide. So for example, I love the novel Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. It's one of my favorite novels, and there was a film adaptation that is beautifully done by Roman Polanski, and I've always has shown it in my classes and watched it myself multiple times. But in recent years, it became known, or at least known to me, I don't know how long it was known, that Roman Polanski is guilty to some degree. I don't remember the legalities of what he did, is accused of, and I believe is found guilty of raping and drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl, a child.
Yeah.
And he has, and so I actually
and
cannot.
He fled the
And
country,
right, in order
so that
to
he
avoid.
could not be tried for it.
Yes. So I personally have some difficulty. I love that film adaptation. I always have, but I'm uncomfortable now watching it because it is a film about a young girl. And so the subject is tied very much. And so I can't watch it with the same eyes, knowing what he did to a young girl. And so if it were perhaps a film about something else entirely, then it might not hit so close to home. But this is another point that I think we can consider is how much the artwork is rooted in the life and in this case, the sins and the crimes of the artist. If it comes out of those kinds of behaviors, then I feel more complicit in supporting the artwork.
Yeah, that's good. So, do you, with my Michael Jackson example, do you think you'll feel more comfortable with that film when Polanski passes away? Assuming Polanski passes away before us,
Yeah, for me, I don't know that necessarily would be a factor. I mean, and again, it's we can think of, there are ethical questions that come up outside of art, such as the scientific knowledge that's been gained out of like war crimes, out of Nazi experiments. I mean, that's a much heavier topic than we agree to talk about on this podcast, but it's still related. I mean, is it ethical to use that knowledge when we even long after these lives have passed? I mean, there are some ethical problems, I think, with that, because because these were crimes and wrongs that were done to human beings, and I don't, just because the people who did them may be past, then that doesn't mean I want to support it. And again, it's there aren't easy answers, but these are good questions, I think, to think about.
Yeah, yeah. You are, yes, I really appreciate how far you're pushing the questions on this,
Without providing any real answers, right?
okay, so I know somebody, he really likes Ravi Zacharias. Really, really, really liked Ravi Zacharias. Got a lot from his teaching and from his books. He wanted to know what to do with all of these books after Ravi's crimes had been exposed. How is Ravi Zacharias different than Michael Tate? Can we? I presume we're saying you can listen to a DC Talk album, but can you still read or listen to a Ravi Zacharias sermon?
I recycled my books. I threw them in the recycling bin. Ravi's books, because
and why? Why is
yeah,
Ravi different
because
than Michael?
yeah, well, I don't listen to Michael Tate or the Newsboys either,
But
but that's
presumably, yeah,
yeah. And I probably, if I would listen to that kind of music, I probably would. I don't know if I would now, but so I think what, for using the example of Ravi, his work, his art is very closely connected to his life, right? So he's proclaiming the gospel, he's teaching God's word, or was. And so again, I think that if you are living a life that puts the lie to God's word, then I'm not going to listen to that. Again, that's not, I'm not out there boycotting it. I'm not saying other people shouldn't, even if I think so. I mean, they have to make those decisions. And so there's that part of it, but also, I mean, there are real women that I know of, who were harmed and abused by him, and I don't want to be part of his ministry, even though he's gone, his ministry profiting off of that harm and abuse. I mean, that is just not something I want to be part of.
Okay, so this is the 100-pound gorilla. No, this is the 900-pound gorilla. Excuse me. 100-pound gorillas are easy to tackle. 900-pound gorilla is, what do we do with Martin Luther King Jr., who was a serial philanderer and apparently was involved in a rape, at least witnessed another man rape a woman, and so gave his tacit endorsement of it and didn't say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the record.
I was just going to say, he's a hero in our country. We honor him with a day off. We read his speeches. He did something extremely important morally for our country.
Right.
How
Now,
do we separate that?
I'm not sure that those accusations have been proved. I think they are disputed, but let's just say that they are true or partly true. He is celebrated, by most people, at least by me, for his civil rights activism and his work in that area. I would not look to him as a spiritual leader, or a pastor or a preacher. He made advancements in civil rights. If and again, this is a little bit different from art, I think, but we also have presidents and president days and other celebrations of men who owned human beings and raped them and fathered children with their enslaved women. And so this is part of our history. And so I think that we should be sober minded and be very limited and focused in what we celebrate about these people, and not, and we really do need to check our hero worship and our celebrity culture. We're asking for trouble when we make heroes out of fallen human beings, no matter how great they are. Again, we can celebrate their great achievements, but we can never put them so high on a pedestal that we forgive, or not forgive, but overlook and ignore the wrong that they may have done, that that we know at the time or that we find out later. So these are real people. They're making history. They're doing important things, all of them. And yet it's almost as though the greater they are, the greater good they do, the greater evil they do. I don't know, if there's a formula for that. And we just simply cannot overlook those things.
Yeah, and I think in part we have to acknowledge that everybody is a sinner and there is stuff in everyone's life, and part of celebrating Martin Luther King is to say, or Thomas Jefferson or James Madison, is to say, hey, this thing they did is great and it's good and we're all benefiting from it. And we're not going to overlook their sins, even though we're benefiting from the good they did.
Right,
They
right,
they should
right,
have been held accountable for these things,
right,
and
right.
anybody in the future should be. So there is a lesson we can still continue to learn from them, despite um, their crimes or their immorality.
Right. And again, when it comes to artists, it just, again, if we go back to the purpose, if Michael Tate is making money and becoming a celebrity and building an industry based on the Christian life, and he lives a life opposite that, then that's a clearer cut picture to me than someone who is celebrated for one thing, but then does grievous wrong in another area. Not that we compartmentalize our lives, but it's just that that the art and the artist are not as joined in some cases.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. Yeah, and like you said, the purpose of the art is important. Part
Right.
of Michael Tate, part of the Newsboys and DC Talks music, the purpose of the art was to disciple you into greater
Right.
Christian living.
Right. Right.
And it, by all appearances, Michael Tate was doing the opposite of that
Right.
every year of his life. He was moving
Right.
further and
Right.
further away from Christian behavior.
Mhm. And if I can bring up an example that is a little bit more removed and takes away a little bit of the complexity, but not all of it. One of my favorite novelists is Charles Dickens, and I read Charles Dickens because he writes great novels, and he was a great thinker and artist. And Charles Dickens was downright abusive to his wife, not only adulterous, but even apparently tried to have her committed to a mental institution just to get her out of the way. He was atrocious to her. Um, I still read and love his novels. Now, applying some of the things that we talked about that already that make it a little bit easier for me is I'm not, I'm not supporting an industry or culture. All of his books are in the public domain. They're old enough, and so the particular copy I buy, that publisher might profit from me doing so, but there are multiple publishers out there who use his works. He's not profiting from it. He was not writing marriage advice or family counsel. So that his art is a little bit separated from what he was proclaiming. And again, the purpose of his art was to tell a good story, to tell about the human condition, particularly in his time and place, and he did that well. And so I don't personally have a problem reading Charles Dickens. I want everyone to read Charles Dickens, but I don't want to, I still am going to, with newer revelations about his personal life. I'm certainly looking at some of the ways he describes women and families and marriage with a little bit of a narrowed eye, because I'm thinking, well, was he living up to this or not? But it's still, this is an example of an artist who lived a far from perfect life, and but whose art I still enjoy and think that we can learn a great deal from.
Excellent. Well, I think we've solved all the issues with this, and nobody will ever have a question about it ever again. Speaking of art, you're a writer. I've got the Evangelical Imagination sitting on my shelf right now. I benefited greatly from it. What else are you
Yeah.
working on? How can people find you?
Well, I have a new book coming out in just about a month on August 5th. It's on vocation and calling. It's called You Have a Calling, Finding Your Vocation in the True, Good, and Beautiful. And I actually do talk about a lot of art in there, and the artistic life and the ordinary life. And I quote a lot of poetry and literature in it. So it seems like it might be a little bit different from my usual fare, but in many ways it is not. And so I'm doing that. And I'm also writing about a lot of great literature, British literature specifically, over on my Substack, The Priory. It's all free for people to read and study literature with me and the sort of classroom that I've created over there.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure to have linked both of those things in the show notes. And
Thank
just
you.
additionally, years ago, my wife met you at a writers conference. She came home. It, she said, "Hey, there's this woman I met. Her name's Karen Swallow Prior. You might want to follow her on Facebook because she's talking about a lot of the same things you are." And I was reluctant. I was resistant. I'm like, "Oh no, I've kind of got it. I don't need another voice in my head." I eventually started following you, and she was right.
Oh,
Everybody should follow Karen on Twitter and Facebook and Threads. Anywhere else you're at?
Instagram. But really,
Instagram.
I'm putting most of my energy in Substack now. It's just a
Okay,
beautiful place. So
great.
yeah, but any of those places are fine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
she's a
That's
great
very
follow.
kind. Oh, well, your wife was right as usual. But thank you for that encouraging word.
But I could be wrong. If you think I am, let me know. Let me know why. I had fun, and I hope you did too. Bye-bye.
It might be you. It's the wrong podcast.
Wrong!